right. Welcome to Questionable Calls, podcast about sports and other things. Clark, so, it's December 23rd. Are you in the holiday spirit?
Let's see. No, not really. No.
Ebenezer Scrooge on the pod with us today.
I'm all right. I don't know. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, I feel like when you get to like middle age and like, especially, I mean, I don't have kids. I mean, if you don't have kids, it's just kind of, when you're a kid, Christmas is like magical. When you're an adult, it's like, all right, so we're going to this person's house. I got to bring this. And then,
yeah,
it's just a lot of other stuff you got to deal with. So
the holiday season is a lot of logistical issues that can turn into nightmares at a moment's notice. And
exactly.
And even when you have kids, once they reach a certain age, it tends to lose a little bit of the magic.
Yeah, so
the magic is gone, Clark. So in the spirit of that, this is going to be our holiday Festivus episode. Clark, it has been a fun year, especially in the sports world. South Florida, Florida in general, but especially South Florida, has got it is a heck of a sports year for us, Clark. We had two teams in the Final Four, the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals, the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Finals. We didn't bring any trophies. Nobody won any trophies, but I mean, Clark, our teams have played really well this year, and the Dolphins are pretty good. Dolphins are the best they've been. Dolphins are the best they've been in 15 years at least. So, from that standpoint, we shouldn't have a lot to be upset about. But you know what? That's why we're here.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you made this point one time. It's like, why do we need to have a Festivus episode of the podcast? Because I mean, we're always airing grievances. That's all we basically do. But I don't know. Just in the spirit of we're both huge fans of Seinfeld, and we thought it'd be really funny to just have a specific episode where we talk about particular grievances that we have. Maybe sort of long-standing things that aren't necessarily bound to a specific game or like time of the year or anything. It's just basically, here's some things that we've thought of that are just kind of really irritating and annoying, and we just want to bring them to your attention.
Welcome, newcomers. The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're going to hear about it. You, Kruger, my son tells me your company stinks.
Yeah, and we don't get a chance during this, during while the games are going on and during the year, we don't get the chance to address them specifically, and so I think there are certain things that they don't, they just kind of bubble up throughout the season, and then we get to address them here. So, all right, Clark, you go first. What's your first grievance?
My first grievance. Well, I mean, there's many to choose from, so it doesn't. I can pick any one, I guess. So let's just start off with this: international NFL games. Okay.
All right.
Started off, we had some games in London, and now first of all, it was like we'd have one game in London. Now we have multiple games in London. And then it's, hey, this year, let's have games in Germany. How about this? How about you call up Elon Musk and you guys fly up to the moon and we'll play a football game there? And it can start at, I don't know, 2 a.m. in the morning or something like that. So you can literally watch football 24 hours in one day. I just, look, I in some ways, I sort of understand it. It's kind of a novelty because American football is not that big of a deal in these other countries. And I get it that they have these games over there and they sell out and they make money. But guys, like really, it's basically, hey, there's a game at 9 and then there's a game at 1 and then there's a game at 4. Then there's a game at 8:15. It's like you can literally watch football all day and just completely ignore the outside world. It's like, I'd like to just get some sleep and not have my entire day be monopolized by football. I mean, doing it from 1 to 8 o'clock is bad enough. But you're going to have a morning game now, too? I mean, I just think this has gone way too far, and I think this is something you've pointed out. It's diluting the product. So I think, guys, can you just limit it to one, or better yet, none? I mean, while we're at it flying to Germany, why don't you just have a game in Australia? Let's just really put the teams out and make them travel, 18 hours on a plane flight to get to the game. I mean, this, I think it puts teams out really. And I think it's bad for a league that claims to care about player safety and limiting, reducing injuries and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, let's just fly you all the way over to Germany and then fly you back. And then you got to play a game, 7 days after you just played the one, across the world. So, yeah, this is just something that's kind of endlessly frustrating to me. It's like, guys, don't let good enough be not enough, okay? Like, it's good enough having most of the games on in one day. That makes you unique compared to these other sports, okay? Just enjoy what you got. We don't need to go nuts about this.
Somebody's very upset about that.
Someone's very upset about this. Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, and to your point, Clark, the games are always weird, right? They don't feel like it doesn't feel like an NFL game when you're watching it on television. I understand that the fans over there, like, and the international fans are beginning to like it. So I get that. I'm not against having more fans who love football. I completely get it, but this isn't we're not barnstorming. This isn't like the 1950s where they used to just bring basketball games all over the place because to try to get people to watch it. You have, like, the NFL has a ironclad product. Like, there's never a shortage of heroin, okay? Like, if you want your drugs, you want to get your high, you can get it. It's not an issue. The NFL has so much damn money. It's like, what are we doing? We're putting games over in different places just to make an extra buck? Like, is this really worth it? Oh, we need to grow the game. Oh, really? You're not growing the game? Like, the idea that they're not growing the game because they don't have a game in London and, Frankfurt or wherever is ridiculous. And, to pile onto that, Clark, one of my grievances that I wrote down, I might as well do it here because it connects to this. Too many NFL games all over the place. Like, What are we doing? We got the Chargers Bills tonight on Peacock exclusively. Like, we're having a playoff game on Mondays now. Like guys, we don't need, like, people are going to watch your game. You don't need to spread it out all over the place. And the other thing is, the biggest problem is, and this is a problem that the NFL should have to pay attention to, is the product is bad. The Thursday night games are mostly bad. Most of the Monday night games are bad. Like, the international games are usually bad, right? You're not making this conducive to good football. And the NFL has enough problems when we've had 70 different quarterbacks this year. Like, the NFL has so many other problems about the product being bad for things that are kind of out of their control that now you're specifically making the product bad on purpose. A Thursday night game every week is absolute bullshit. There's no reason for it. There's no excuse for it. Like, when they used to do it, like, at the end, the second half of the season, I thought, okay, that's one thing. But, this is ridiculous. It's like backs-to-backs in basketball. Like, you're literally just saying, all right, well, the play is not going to be as good tonight. Could you imagine if you went to go see the Phantom of the Opera or whatever your favorite play is on Broadway, right? Like, yeah, we're going to put in the backup cast tonight, so it's not going to be as good. I mean, you'd be like, what the hell? So, yeah, I totally agree with you. The NFL has gotten way too big for itself, and the problem is, and the scary part is, Clark, we've talked about this before, it's not going to change. Like, they're going to continue to do this because the NFL is just way too powerful.
Yeah, this is something that, I mean, I wrote this down too. That was one of my grievances. There's just too many games on. It's like, guys, just, you've got a really good thing here. Don't get too greedy, okay? You're not getting enough money. You're not, like, the number one sport by a mile. I mean, literally, the NFL could have a bad year in ratings, and they would still be miles away from all the other sports. Like, guys, it's so freaking good. Don't turn into Tony Montana and Scarface, okay? Where the guy at the bank is telling you, look, I can't launder this much money. It's like, you need to slow it down a little bit. It's like, dude, you got tons of money. Just, I mean, the NFL is becoming like, it's like at the end of Scarface. Tony Montana is sitting there at his opulent desk, and he's just got cocaine everywhere. And it's just like, guys, Slow down. Things are really good. Don't overdo it.
Yeah, the other thing I was thinking about this today, Clark. The best part to me about the NFL is the 1 o'clock window on Sunday. Having a whole
Yes.
bunch of games on at once, and you get this. It's the best like hour and a half. The last quarter and a half of the 1 o'clock games. That's the best thing. One of the best things about watching sports, and that's the best thing the NFL has going for it. And now you're diluting it by taking games out and sticking them all over the place. And the thing is, like, when you put a bad game with 8 other games, it raises the level of it. It's instantly not as bad because you don't have to watch that much of it. If when you put the bad games all over the place, well, then it's like, all right, well, you're basically showcasing. Oh, here you go. Here, well, let's put a bad game on to show off our product on Thursday night or Monday night when everyone's watching because there's only one game on. Let's do that. And I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, well, I can only watch one game. I have to have multiple games. No, I get it. Like the good games, I'm totally fine with watching them by themselves. But yeah, the NFL is ruining the best thing that they have going for them, in my opinion.
Well, it's kind of like with when we had the advent of binge watching. Once we got streaming, you could just binge watch a show, right? And when you're able to do that, there can be bad episodes, but you're not going to notice because you just keep watching them, right? So you watch one and it's like, that episode was okay, but it probably set up this next one. And then you just watch the next one. It's like, oh, that's awesome. So you're enjoying the whole thing. It doesn't matter that, there's different episodes as opposed to if you were watching it just 1 week at a time, one episode each week, then it's like you watch one and you're like, oh man, I got to wait till the next one. So if it's a slower episode, it sucks more because you can't just move on to the next episode, So yeah, that's probably something that I would compare it to. And yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, the 1 o'clock window, like it can make and there's been some bad play this year. It can make bad games okay. If it's just kind of close at the end and you can switch back and forth between different games, that's great. But if you get a standalone game and it sucks, well, I mean, you've lost people right there. Well, I shouldn't say you've totally lost people, but I'm just saying it's an opportunity that you're kind of screwing up because people are going to watch the NFL almost no matter what. But at a certain point, you're probably going to screw things up. And that's probably what's going to happen with the NFL. They're probably just going to get so full of themselves that they can just do whatever the hell they want and people will keep watching. And eventually, maybe they'll hit kind of a wall where people will kind of that advantage that the NFL has, maybe that'll kind of dissipate a little bit.
All right. What's your next grievance?
Let's see. Oh, here we go. Talking about the NFL draft during the regular season. Okay? Look, I'm not necessarily opposed to ever talking about the NFL draft, but guys, the whole point of sports is that there are games being played. We're in the regular season. There are games being played right now. There's all kinds of things we can talk about that are related to the actual games being played besides the draft, okay? I don't care what the draft order is. I don't care what these teams are going to do next year. I don't care. Oh, is someone going to take Marvin Harrison Jr.? Is someone going to take this quarterback? Is someone going to take that quarterback? I don't care. There are games going on. And I understand that if you're a fan of, the Bears or something or the Patriots and you're kind of interested in that because your regular season sucks, okay, but these need to be national topics discussed on national shows. I don't get that. I just find it incredibly boring and it's just a totally lame way to go through a radio show or a talk show on TV. I mean, guys, really? Oh, well, what if this happens and this team's going to get this guy and this team's going to get this guy? We can have our different opinions on these players, but we don't really know what they're going to be until they actually start playing. We don't know Bryce Young. Carolina's going to get a different coach. Maybe that'll help them. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But this is all speculation. There's actual games going on right now. There's more interesting stuff we can talk about. The Dolphins and Cowboys game. That's interesting. The Ravens are playing the 49ers. Hell, I'll even take MVP talk over talking about the draft.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. I get like, yeah, I understand. Like you said, I understand if your team's bad and this is what you have to root for. I get that. The Dolphins have been bad plenty of times in my life. I get rooting for a high pick. I totally support that from a fan base. However, you are exactly right. We're doing this earlier and earlier and earlier every goddamn year. It's getting to be too much. Like, a team loses 2 games in a row now at the beginning of the season. Like, up. Number 1 pick watch. It's just like, I just, yeah, I agree with you. It's ridiculous. We've, I think, now, by the way, I like the draft. I'm not against the draft. After the season's over, when we, have all the buildup, whatever, I love watching the draft on TV. It's fantastic. Okay. But we really don't need to talk about it. Like people already have Justin Fields traded to another team. Right? They've already got it figured out. It's like, oh, well, they're debating how much you can get for Justin Fields right now. And it's like, let them finish the season first. Like, let's finish the season and then we'll see where we're at. Everybody wants to make a decision now, yesterday, So, yeah, it's too much. I like Caleb Williams. I think the Bears are probably going to take him number 1, but all that stuff changes. And the other thing is, and this is where I really agree with you. The draft stock and all that stuff changes so voraciously from the time we end the season to the time we get to the draft. It's ridiculous. Everyone is just ridiculously speculating because all the teams have not done their evaluation. So we have no real information on who teams like and who they don't, right? They haven't gone through the process yet. So we're completely winging it. We really have no idea. It's just talking heads on TV talking about it. They have no real information. Because nobody knows anything and nobody's telling anyone anything yet. So yeah, it's complete nonsense. You might as well be talking about, tectonic plate shifting or, the tides, because that's how much meaning any of this nonsense has right now.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like they're more interested in transactions than they are action, like on the field stuff. And I don't want people to get too caught up in that. Like, I want to watch the games. That's why I like sports. Okay, this other stuff, some of it's kind of interesting, some of it's not interesting. But I don't want to become overwhelmed with this stuff, especially during the season. Like, if it's in the off season and you got to find something to talk about, like, fine. But dude, like, we're still, no one's won the Super Bowl yet. We haven't even started the playoffs yet. And there's all kinds of doubt about who's going to get into the playoffs and other teams that might get left out that we thought maybe would be in there. So, like, there's plenty of stuff to talk about. We don't need to get into all of this other stuff during the season. So anyway, what's your next grievance?
Okay, so this one was the one I've been thinking about for a while, and when I wrote my list, this came out immediately. I don't care. I know gambling has become a big deal. I know everybody's sponsored by gambling, DraftKings and FanDuel and all this nonsense. I get it. I don't care about your picks. I really don't. I don't care who you think is going to win. I don't care what you think about the point spread. I don't give a rat's ass that you have money on the game and you lost because some kicker missed a kick or somebody fumbled or some coach did something stupid. I don't give a shit. Your gambling problem is your problem. Okay? Leave it out of my show. Leave it out of my sports talk. I don't care. Okay? I think and by the way, and this is the problem, Clark, it's bleeding into everything. People lose a pick on a gambling bet, and then they come in and bitch about something that they couldn't care less about. Nobody cares about what decision the Indianapolis Colts coach made on 4th down, except that they had money on the game. So it's infecting everything. I understand gambling is a huge deal. I get it. I understand. But I don't care about your picks. Now, the shows that are advertised as this is a gambling show, I get it. That's fine. If you're doing a show for gambling, about gambling, for gamblers, that's fine. I have zero problem with it. And it doesn't mean I'm not interested in point spreads. It doesn't mean I don't like hearing kind of what the philosophy is behind it sometimes. I get it. But I don't want to hear about how you did and how you're mad at this team because you lost a bet. I'm done with it. I'm done. And the anger from fans now is going to be out of control because of all the money that's gambled and all the money spent. I get it, but I don't care. I'm not interested in it. I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's to be honest, if people start talking about how their fantasy team did
It's the
on
same thing.
yeah, the same thing. Honestly, I think the fantasy team is worse
Oh yeah.
because most of these fantasy teams, it's season long fantasy, so you're not going to win any money until the end of the year. So it's like, oh, you lost this week, so like, did you lose any money? Like, I mean, at least the gambling thing, it's like, oh, you lost money. All right, okay, that's at least maybe there's a little bit of interesting thing with that,
Well,
but
yeah, because the gambling, we at least have some context. We know who won and who lost, whatever. When you're talking about your fantasy team, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what your league is like. I don't know what your rules are like, and it is so not interesting. Nobody
yeah,
cares about what's happening in your fantasy team. Okay? That's like telling me about a story that you wrote that nobody else has heard of. Like it literally it means absolutely nothing to me, and I'm tired. I'm tired of it. Now, again, I understand there are shows specifically for gambling, and when they do a segment that's these are the games you should bet on, I have no problem with that. I'm not crushing people for doing that. I understand it's part of our culture now, the sports gambling thing. But the insanity on it, where people are upset or their day is ruined, or it colors their analysis of the game because of whether they won or lost money, is just. I'm sorry, I don't have time for it. I don't want to hear it.
yeah. I mean, yeah. It's one of those things where like I understand the show having commercials about it, but then it feels like everyone they need to be talking about it during the broadcast, and they need to like we're brought to you by this and this, whatever. But I just, we went for years with illegal gambling, and it was a huge industry. How much promotion now that it's legal? How much promotion do you really need to do to get people to gamble? I mean, really? Like we need to just be talking about this all the freaking time. All the commentators have got to have money on this. I just I don't know. It's just kind of weird, and like you said, it's just boring and uninteresting, and just there's other stuff that we can talk about. I mean, if I post your gambling picks on Twitter, okay, and I can go look at them there. Like I don't need to hear 20 minutes of you talking about why you want to take this team plus whatever, or this team minus however many points, or you're taking the over under, or you're doing prop bets, or you're betting on the first half and come on, man. I really don't care.
Yeah, I have no problem with gambling. I have nothing against it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying there's a place for it, and the place is not we're analyzing the game and you're mad because your team lost, or you lost money on a game. That has no place in where we're at. All right, Clark, what do you got?
All right, so maybe I did this one last year. I can't remember, but all this there seems to be a lot of confusion in the NFL over what is a catch, or maybe it's not confusion. Maybe it's I don't like the way that this is being officiated during games. Okay, look, I understand you want people to complete the process of the catch, right? And you want them to get, if they fall to the ground, like hold on to the ball and don't let the ball come out or touch the ground, right? But then there's the element of, oh, well, if the ball moves, right? Like say you get you run over toward the sideline, you get 2 feet down as you catch the ball, you fall to the ground, you've got the ball, against your body, it moves a little bit, okay, but it never falls out, it never touches the ground. Well, that's not a catch because you didn't have the ball totally secured. Well, did you lose the ball? No. Can you just let receivers make a? I mean, this has gone way overboard. Can we just let receivers make a play? Look, if you get both feet down and you basically got control of the ball, that's a catch to me. I don't need to see you like roll around on the ground and make sure that the ball never moves. Like if the ball touches the ground, okay. If you trap the ball, okay. If you didn't get both feet down, okay. And I'm fine with doing replays to make sure that the guy got both feet down. But just this whole thing where people go down and then the ball moved a little bit, so that's not a catch. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the main thing that's been kind of irritating me because I mean, we watch sports, we want to see great athletes make plays, okay, and I think this takes away the ability of some players to make plays. I mean, we do this thing where if you catch it and you run toward the end zone and then you put the ball over the plane, but then the ball gets knocked out, well, that's a touchdown, So, but then when it comes to like before the end zone, it's like, well, he got both feet down, but I don't know. The ball kind of moved a little bit when he had it in his arm against his body. So no, I don't think that's a catch. I mean, you have to have it secure before you go out of bounds. It's like, no. Catch the ball while it's in bounds, right? I mean, if you're like bobbling the ball as you're getting 2 feet down, then it becomes a little dicier. But again, I don't want to take. I mean, I saw this happen in the Super Bowl last year with Devontae Smith. He caught a pass, and I'm like, come on, guys, that's a catch. Oh, it moved a little bit. No, it's not a catch. I want to see guys make plays. So that's
well,
my
especially
main complaint.
I agree with you. Especially now when scoring is down in the NFL, lower than it's been in 13 years. Like maybe we could make some improvements where we will allow some of these guys to complete some of these plays instead of taking it away from them. And that speaks to the whole replaying. We have so much replay in sports now that that's another thing that's gotten out of control.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I'm with you on that. We need to allow room for guys to make plays. This one it's been bothering me for a while, and it's kind of built up over time, and I'm finally hit my boiling point with it. The phrase "I'm keeping receipts." Okay, I've had it. Like, I don't care if you're keeping receipts of people that have criticized you. Like, I'm not sure why it became like everybody needs to tell us now that they're motivated by people saying that they're not good enough or whatever criticism there is. And I think what bothers me more is, like, first of all, we're saying it way too much. I've had enough of the saying, number one. Number two, the reaction to it has gotten ridiculous. Now it's like, as soon as someone says, I keep receipts, then the media has to go find, well, who are they keeping receipts for? Who was criticizing them? What's the criticism? What so it's now we have to causes the media to dig for it, which is just ridiculous. This is like, we all know how professional athletes are. Like, we all know how any athletes are, especially professional athletes. They're maniacally competitive, right? Anyone who tells them they can't do something or insinuates that they might not be able to do something is the enemy, and that's going to motivate them to do it anyway. But yet, every time an athlete says, well, I'm keeping receipts, or acts like he hears what everybody's saying, we're shocked. Like, wow, I can't believe that he's, motivated by, and it's the same thing when sports media complains about when athletes are like, well, I need my respect. They complain about, I need my respect. It's like, you shouldn't need respect. You're really good. Why? What do you need respect for? And it's like, you're not understanding the athlete's mindset. That's what their mindset is. When Ja Morant, after the game, he comes back, he's been suspended 25 games, makes the game-winning shot, and then yells as he's running to the locker room, okay? He didn't come out. He didn't say this on social media. He didn't try to make it a big deal. He said, yeah, I'm keeping receipts. They asked him about it after the game. The reporter asked him about it. He said, yeah, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I heard what everybody was saying, and that's it. And he left it there. And it turns into this whole, everybody has to be a topic on everybody's show. Well, who's he keeping receipts for? I mean, he was the one in the wrong. What does he think? Who was criticizing him unfairly? Like, he was wrong. He should be keeping receipts. Why don't you be a little more humble? And it's just like, it's this old man sports argument that's just absolute nonsense. All athletes keep receipts. I'm here to tell you. Like, this is how it works. They all do it. So they don't need to. I think they should. My rule change here, or not rule change, but what I would like to see done is stop saying it. We all know you keep receipts. We get it. You don't need to say it out loud. You really don't. And the media needs to stop acting like a bunch of fucking children about this. Oh, what he said something about them. We gotta go find who it is. It's literally like we're in grade school, Clark, and somebody said something insulting to the other person. Everybody goes, ooh. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. It's like, enough of this nonsense. I don't care if you're keeping receipts. That's great. Whatever helps you motivated to play better, that's fine. I have no problem with it. Okay, if you want to lash out at somebody, go ahead.
You're keeping receipts. Like, where are you keeping them? Are they on paper? Do you have them like as notes on your phone? Or are we going to go to like a press conference and you're going to be like, yeah, so I've been keeping receipts, and I would just like to let you know what receipts that I've kept here. On June 17th, 2022, Dan Patrick said this. And so I would just like to say, scoreboard. No, it's like,
Well, and the other thing, Clark, is the media is shocked that people would be hearing what they're saying about them when they're national stories and everybody's fucking talking about them and criticizing them all the time about everything. And they're like, oh my God, why is the athlete so sensitive? It's like, dude, like you're part of the problem.
We have social media. It's not like this is the old days where people would just write a newspaper column and there'd be the evening news and then maybe there'd be Sports Center. Okay. Now you've got all that, plus you have, Twitter and Instagram and all these shows on YouTube, and then obviously radio shows and TV shows. And and a lot of these shows get clipped and they get put online. So then that's an even another venue for these places to get traction for people to hear about it. So yeah, players are going to hear about it. It's like, most people are on social media. So it's, it's a lot harder to just be like, oh, well, I just go on, radio silence or whatever, and there's probably some players that still do that. But in order to do that, like, you got to not be on social media. You got to not be on your phone. You got to just, I don't know, like, go. Maybe it's like, and I don't even know if, I was trying to think of an example of somebody who's disconnected from this stuff. I don't even know if this is true. Is Kirk Cousins disconnected from this stuff? Is he just like spending time with his family or whatever? But he does have that whole thing where he went, you like that? So it feels like he knows at least a little bit of something about what people are saying about him online or on TV or whatever. So yeah, it's it's like, oh, well, just don't pay attention to that. That's like you were saying, it's an old man argument, and it's kind of not, it's not really keeping up with the times and the way things are, the way reality is right now.
Well, and the thing is, you go back, watch The Last Dance with Michael Jordan. He was hearing what everybody was saying, and that was in the 80s. Like, so this is, my point is, this is universal for athletes. They all feel this way. They're all motivated to get better, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's they're being human beings. But the way that we're treating it is just, we're blowing it way out of proportion. We're acting like, oh my God, this guy's so sensitive. It's like, no, man, he keeps receipts. Yeah, okay, great. Like, and by the way, to act like, and the other thing that, specifically to the John Morant situation, people are acting like, oh, nobody criticized John Morant unfairly. I kind of disagree with that. Whenever anybody does anything, especially the situation he was in, there are plenty of people. By the way, the internet's a disgusting, scary place, by the way. There's plenty of people on the internet saying all kinds of stuff that I can't repeat on this podcast. So the idea that, oh, well, he wasn't being criticized that harshly. Yeah, by you, maybe by you. But I do believe there is some stuff that's said about athletes that's a bit over the top. But anyway.
Well, and people need to understand that there's a there's a reason that you and I and a lot of other hosts and stuff are not professional athletes. They have a different mindset, especially on a team, and a team becomes very us against the world, us against them, our backs against the wall, nobody believes in us. And so it's like, guys, yeah, that's what happens. So rightly or wrongly, if you criticize somebody in sports, on a team, a coach, a player, whatever, rightly or wrongly, a lot of teams are going to sort of rally around that person, and there's going to be the whole us against. And it's like, guys, this is so old. We see this we saw this with Michigan, with the Harbaugh sign stealing thing. Everyone was like, oh, it's us against the world and all this other stuff. And like I said, rightly or wrongly, or however ridiculous that might be, that's how these athletes are.
Yeah, that's their mentality, and that's okay. We shouldn't be. I guess I get upset with the media because we shouldn't be surprised by it anymore. Like, we should have adapted to this. And when Dan Patrick complains about it, who's been covering sports for 40 years, it's like, dude, like, where have you been? Like, are you awake? Like, do you see what's going on? So anyway, all right, I could go on about that all day. All right, Clark, what's your next one?
So let's see here. Okay, college football referees. The amount of TV money that you guys are getting, we can't get better referees. And again, I don't want to come down too hard on the referees themselves. I'm sure you guys are trying your best, but You watch these college football games, they constantly have to stop and do reviews of stuff. Maybe this isn't the referees themselves. Maybe this is coming from upstairs or whatever. I don't know. But it's just like, guys, it feels like for just like, every 4 or 5 calls, they got to review it. And I'm like, we can't get this, because, you can criticize the NFL officiating, but for the most part, I think they get most stuff right. So probably 95% of stuff. Now everybody focuses on the 5% they don't get right. But yeah, I just feel like it's possible for college football referees to be better and for us to not have to waste as much time doing replays. I want to get stuff right, but some of the stuff that they have to review, I'm like, oh my God, you guys couldn't figure this out, like when it actually happened. And I understand it's a very difficult job to see this stuff live as it's happening, because everything's moving so quickly. But I just feel like this is something they need to get. This is probably a source of a lot of, and we've complained about the length of college football games, which got better this year. I think they made some changes with the clock. But this is probably the next thing they need to do, and that would, I don't want to say totally solve the problem, but probably fix a lot of what's going wrong, which is making the games take too long.
Yeah, and a lot of people have complained about the officiating in the NFL this year. They're like, oh, it's bad, blah, blah, blah. And I wonder, Clark, like, I hate to go back to the gambling thing, but I wonder, like, how much of that is just people upset about, losing some of these games and coming down to some calls or something. But in general, I agree with you. I think the college football we need to do a better job of there needs to be we just need to put more money into it, more resources, more attention to it, because especially now with the 12-team playoff, like this stuff is really, really important. It really, really matters. And we, with all the money and resources behind it, we need better officials. We need to do a better job with the product that we've got, because it's just, we've talked about this a million times, but I just think college football is just so far behind where they should be. Like, they should be the second most popular sport, and they should be rivaling the NFL, and they can't, because they just can't get their shit together with the lack of playoff system, attempts, and the committees and all the nonsense. They just can't. They've got no one's running it, and it just, that's one of the.
Even if they do make the right decision, it takes them way too long. I mean, you're hearing this. I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but now people are probably hearing about Florida State is, I guess, filing a lawsuit to try to get out of the deal with the ACC because they want to leave the ACC without having to pay that $130 million penalty or whatever for the TV rights. And it's like, God, you guys should have done this, years ago. Or the ACC, what are you doing signing a TV contract that's that long? Yeah. Like, what the hell is going on there? So college football, like, they either get stuff wrong or it takes them way too long to get stuff right. And then by the time you do, you lose a bunch of fans, and then the damage is done and you can't undo it. I mean, it's the same thing with like the NHL, like in the mid to late 90s, the sport started to get bad because the way defenses were played, they needed to change rules. And they waited until there was either a strike or lockout or whatever. And then they changed the rules, and it's like, okay, this is better, but the damage was done.
Yeah, they missed an entire season.
A lot of fans. So
yeah, they missed an entire season because of the strike.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with you. All right, so let's see. So my next one was okay, we're this goes with the too many football games on too many different nights. We're streaming on too many services with sports. This is getting ridiculous, and now the NFL is going to try to do some exclusive nonsense. They're going to have a game tonight only on Peacock. They're going to have a playoff game only on Peacock, which is just, to me, is just flat out insulting to sports fans. That's just absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, this is it's insane with all this crap. Like, now, listen, everybody has Amazon Prime. I get it. That's fine for Thursday night or whatever, when they don't get the same audience that they get everywhere else. But now we're going nuts. Now they had some college football games that were just exclusively on Peacock. Some Big Ten games. Now, granted, most of the Big Ten games are bad, so it's fine. But this is going to be a problem, and I'm worried that this is just going to become too much and too dangerous. We're going to get huge games that everybody should be able to watch, and we're going to put them exclusively on a streaming service. And so, maybe this worries me a little bit too much because there's especially in college football, there's so many games. I understand you got to put them somewhere. I get it, like ESPN Plus, and I get it for the games that nobody's really going to watch. But for the major games, right, when the NFL is putting a playoff game on Peacock, now we're going too far. We're going too far into the streaming water that now we're losing, what we need, what the best thing about the NFL is.
Right. And I mean, I guess part of the this is part of the problem with the NFL. They're making money because the streaming, service had to pay to get the game, right? Or games, plural, whatever it is. So the NFL is making money on that, but at the same time, like, does the money you're making from the deal itself, where the company has to pay the rights to broadcast the NFL game, does that offset the fact that you're going to have a much smaller audience on that streaming service? Okay. I mean, people need to understand this. I understand that there's a lot of media coverage about streaming, and there's all these different streaming networks coming out and all this stuff. Okay. But companies still advertise on traditional TV. A lot of companies advertise on traditional TV, and they spend tons of money advertising there. Okay. There's a lot of streaming, but still at this point, streaming is basically an add-on on top of, traditional media. Okay. People aren't, granted, maybe this is different with Gen Z and Generation Alpha, the one that comes after them, like, because they're growing up in a totally different world than you and I did, or even Gen Z did. Just a totally different world. So maybe for them, they don't even know what cable TV is. They're just doing streaming because that's what they grew up with. But for people right now and for the foreseeable future, it is still an add-on thing. It's not like everybody has this. Look at CNN tried to have a streaming service, right? And it failed in like 2 weeks. Okay, because they couldn't get enough people to subscribe to it. It's, again, in order for people to watch stuff, they have to want to watch it. Okay? So, yeah, people are going to want to watch the NFL. So maybe that's why the NFL is thinking, oh, well, we can just put it anywhere and people will watch it. True, but you're still not going to get as big of an audience as you would get on traditional TV or even cable TV. So, yeah, I'm not really a fan of it. I don't like this. I got to try to find all this stuff on these different services. I don't think with something like sports, like not just sports, but with a well-known sport, I shouldn't have to jump through a bunch of hoops to be able to find the game. Okay. You guys should still be wanting the broadest audience possible so you can have as many eyeballs as possible on the ads that are running during the commercial breaks.
Yeah, and by the way, the only streaming services that work, Clark, are the ones that are funded by bigger entertainment companies. NBC owns Peacock, right? So that's basically
Amazon owns Amazon Prime.
Right.
Yeah, Disney, I guess, I don't watch ESPN Plus, but I guess Disney owns that one. And then what do you got? Netflix, which they sort of started everything, so I guess we can kind of trust them. But it's one of these things where I think companies are getting ahead of themselves, and they're thinking that streaming is something that it's not. Like I said, streaming is just an add-on at this point. And I do think they're going to hit a wall, because now we're reaching a point where it's like, well, you got to subscribe to this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And then it becomes like, well, this is why I got rid of the cable bundle, because I didn't want to deal with all this crap. And I think people are going to start to reach that point.
Yeah. All right, Clark, what do you got next?
Let's see. I really only got like 2. Yeah, I got like 1 or 2 left. So off of the one that I said before, talking about the draft during the season, talking about coaching changes during the season. I find this, the draft, I can almost say is a little bit better, but coaching changes during the regular season, I don't care. Should they fire this guy? Should they not fire this guy? Should they hire this guy? Are they going to hire this guy are they going to go get Harbaugh? Are they going to do this? Are they going to trade for Bill Belichick? Are they going to trade for Brian Daboll? I don't know. I don't really, again, this isn't one that's like, I think the draft is worse maybe in some ways. And we did talk about the Brandon Staley coaching change, on the last podcast we did.
Yeah, but Clark, to your point, we weren't talking about Brandon Staley getting fired before that.
Exactly.
Before he got fired, we weren't talking about it. Once he got fired, then it was like, okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah, right. And it's like after the guy got fired, let's talk about that. But, we weren't like every week going, oh, should they fire this guy? Should they not fire this guy? We weren't like doing all this stuff about should Harbaugh come back to the NFL during the season? Because again, I don't, if Harbaugh does come back, then let's talk about it then when he's actually the coach of a team. Then at that point it's kind of interesting, but that would still be something I would be talking about during the off season. I just feel like coaching changes are not, it's one of the more boring things we can do, especially during the season when there are games going on.
And you make a good point. The media's job is to get us interested in it, in whatever it is, Clark. And the problem with the media today is you can't really trust that they're doing it for their own gain most of the time now. So when Adam Schefter brings something up about a coach, it's usually just to get us talking about it. There's usually not a whole lot of truth to it. So my contention is if something's actually going to happen that you can actually report on, go ahead. But unless that's the case, then I'm not interested. Well, it's just like, and I go back to this all the time, when Adam Schefter reported the day of the draft that Aaron Rodgers might want to be traded from Green Bay. And I don't want to say it wasn't true, okay? But the idea that Aaron Rodgers had like gone to the Packers and said, you need to trade me, that was not true. What was true was there's a whole bunch of stuff that had been building up, right? That Aaron had friction with Green Bay, which, by the way, we already knew Aaron Rodgers had friction with Green Bay. Okay? He just decided the day of the draft that he was going to tell us about it. I'm like, okay, bro. Like, listen, man, I'm fine if stuff's important and something's actually happening. It's fine, but don't fucking bullshit me. And that's a lot of what is happening here, and that's what happens with the coaching stuff. It goes in, everybody starts talking about this, and they start talking about that. Then the Belichick thing this year, okay? Well, no, he's got a contract extension. Well, they've made their decision already, even though nobody else is reporting that. Tom Curran is the only one who said it. He didn't write it, and nobody else confirmed it. So we're just, What are we doing now? We're just saying stuff.
Yeah, like a decision was made, in Germany when they were playing the Colts, and I'm like, look, I understand that you're not going to reveal your sources on that, but it just, if there was something more concrete with that, then maybe I'd believe it. But now it makes me skeptical, especially because of past history with the media, the sports media, and the way they talk about these coaching changes. And I mean, you hear different people. There's no way they can bring Bill Belichick back. I mean, how do you know that? Are you plugged into the Crafts? Are you friends with one of them? Are you, does Brady know something and Tom Brady's feeding you information? Are you like best friends with Gerard Mayo or something? Like, do you know some of the other assistant coaches there? Do you have some insight with Bill O'Brien or something? Like, I don't,
some media does a good job, but the problem is it's too hard to sort out who's doing a good job and who isn't, because there's so much, it's all mostly nonsense. Yeah. It's just way too difficult. But I agree with you, Clark. Like, by the way, these the coaching changes and the draft, these are perfect topics to talk about the Monday after the season ends. That's what it's built for. That's exactly what these are for. So I don't know why we're wasting this much energy. It's just amazing how much energy we waste on all of this stuff. Like, Harbaugh was supposed to go back to the NFL the last 2 years. He didn't. I don't know what he's going to do.
Exactly.
So anyway, so all right. So my next one is, Clark, where we are with college bowl games. What the hell's the point? Like, what are we doing? Like, most teams, especially the major teams from Power 5 conferences, all their guys are all either in the transfer portal or the guys are opting out for the draft, so they're not going to play in the bowl games, right? So the team that you're watching in the bowl game looks nothing like the team from the regular season, and they don't look anything like the team that's going to be playing next season. It used to be like the bowl games were like preparation. You get extra practices and it kind of leads you into the next season. That was the point, right? But we've completely lost that. The only bowl games where teams are playing are like Marshall against UTSA. or Jacksonville State against whoever they played. Like the ones in the first week of bowl season, those teams actually care because they're either from the MAC or they don't have a whole bunch of guys going to the NFL or their coach isn't leaving, whatever. I just don't. We have 41 bowl games now, Clark. We had to put Minnesota, who's 5-7, in a bowl game because we didn't have enough teams. So there's no way, you can't tell me anybody's watching these games. Like the fact that they're on ESPN might generate maybe a little bit of an audience, but there's no way they're getting their money's worth for these games. Now, I have no problem with teams getting a reward for their season, right? If you're a player, it's nice. You get a reward. You get to practice for a few more weeks. Then you get to go. You guys get to take a trip somewhere as a team. You get to enjoy it. You guys get to have fun. Like I have zero issue with that. But what we're doing, it's ridiculous. The Orange Bowl is got Georgia and Florida State, and half of Florida State's team is not playing. All their best players are out. So, and I'm sure Georgia's guys that are going to the NFL, they're probably not going to play either. What's the point? Like, what are we doing? And we're charging people exorbitant amounts of money for this nonsense, and it's ridiculous. Now, it'll be helped a little bit by the 12-team playoff. You'll at least get the group of the New Year's 6 bowl games will all be a big deal because people won't be opting out of them because they'll be quarterfinal and semifinal games basically. So I get that, but yeah, I just don't. I know some people love college football and they just love listen, I have no problem with people I want to watch UTSA against Marshall. Good for you. Have at it. But I just don't understand what we're doing. I don't understand. It's an outdated thing for college football. And, I don't know. And I don't have an answer here. This is not one of these where I have the answer. I think the 12-team playoff will help. But, it's just, they're kind of, the bowl games are in this weird, purgatory where they don't have any relationship to the season they're in or next season. So it's just kind of strange.
Yeah. I mean, the bowl games are obviously, they've been outdated for a long time now. It's from a different, if someone didn't know what bowl games were and you tried to explain it to them, it wouldn't make any sense. They'd be like, so it's an exhibition game? Well, no, but yeah, so it doesn't really matter for anything. It's like, no, you get to practice a little more. And then it's just one of those things about college football that just doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. It's like I was saying, I think a few podcasts ago, college football maybe is at its best when it's at its most absurd. And the bowl games are just another example of something that's just kind of absurd. I don't know what the hell we're doing, but it's one of these things that's hung around. It's another one of these things where it's like, why are you guys doing that? Well, I don't know. We've always done it, so I guess we'll just keep doing it. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Let's see. I'll run through a few more of mine. I know you only got one left. Athletes with podcasts. Look,
okay.
I think. By the way, that's not to denigrate all athletes with podcasts. I think there's a lot of them that are really good. I think JJ Redick does a really good job. I think there's several of them that do really well, but I don't need to hear Micah Parsons' opinion on everything under the sun. I really don't need to hear who Micah Parsons thinks should win the MVP. Honestly, what are we doing now? It's just, I guess I'm not that upset with the athletes with the podcast. I'm upset that we have to respond to it. I understand it provides content for everybody, and every TV show loves it. Every athlete with a podcast is great, is fantastic. And I'm not saying that a bunch of athletes don't do a really good job. They really do. I think the Kelseys do a good job. I think Draymond, when he was doing it, was doing a good job. I'm not completely against it, but it's just kind of like that. We shouldn't be taking it seriously. This is by the way, just to relate to regular, normal culture. This is like us taking Joe Rogan seriously. This is like us taking advice on what we should do with our health and our lives from Joe Rogan or Aaron Rodgers. I have no problem. You guys want to have a podcast? Good for you. But we shouldn't be treating it seriously. We should not be getting mad because they're not giving 100% perfect, medical advice. Okay, I guarantee you there won't be anyone in our comments going, you know what, you guys were a little off on that. You really should check your facts. It's like, no, this This isn't Fox News. Like, I don't.
We're not journalists here. We're not trying to,
We don't need to get stuff right. This is not about, if you want facts, like, hey man, the internet's right there. Like, go ahead. Like WebMD, man. Look it all up. But we shouldn't be reacting to these athletes like podcasts like they're prophets, and they really know their stuff. Because I mean, let's face it, Noah, two professional athletes have spent most of their lives, working on their body and working on their game, and they may have neglected some other things in order to get where they're at. So let's just hold off on athletes or prophets now.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, and I've made this offhand comment before. I mean, how many freaking podcasts? And again, this is hilarious coming from someone who's saying this on a podcast. But how many freaking podcasts do we need to have? I mean, it's like the internet. It's like everybody's got a voice. Does everybody need a voice? Really?
By the way, Clark, everybody should have a voice. I agree with you. Not everybody should be listened to. Okay, we don't. It's like,
there you go. Yeah,
it's like this Patton Oswalt does this joke where he's like, somebody says, "Well, you've got to respect their beliefs. You've got to respect their beliefs." Like, no, you don't. It's like, okay, people at comic book conventions who are telling you that they're really the Green Lantern, like, we don't need to respect their beliefs. He's like, my grandfather says all kinds of stuff. We don't agree with him, nor do we respect him. Okay, so yes, I agree with you. Everybody's opinion does not need to be respected. It's good for TV shows, it's good for podcasts, but let's slow down on Micah Parsons has the answers to whatever's going on. And I'm sorry to use him as an example. He talks about football for the most part, but it's I mean, it's just, again, there's probably way too much content now, and there's just this constant push for more and more and more and more. It's just hilarious. It's like there's never been more content, right? But it feels like there's never been less really good content. Right. And everything Micah Parsons says ends up on First Things First. It's like everything he says or comments on, they have to do a segment on it. It's just like, guys, I know he's providing content for you, but come on, you could do better than this.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I don't know. I mean, I'll give athletes credit. You're finding another way to make money. I'm sure they're making money on these things. So,
no, hey, no shame in that. I have zero problem with.
I do wonder how much money these different companies have to pay for to pay people to do ad reads for them. I mean, how much money does Dollar Shave Club have? I mean. Dollar Shave Club, Stamps.com, Harry's,
Simply Safe,
NordVPN, whatever else. How much money do you guys have to advertise? I'm hearing you all over the place. I mean, you can't be spending that much money.
Look, we should do an episode where we just talk about the weird advertisers of different podcasts, okay, that you've never heard of. It's just the only reason I've heard of Simply Safe or NordVPN is because listening to podcasts. It has nothing to do.
X-Chair. Yeah, exactly. It's all this stuff. It's like, I'm not buying that, but you're getting money from it, I guess. So whatever. I don't know. That's the revelation from this Festivus episode. And by the way, if anyone wants to advertise on our podcast, please have at it. We'll read whatever the hell it is, and we won't say anything bad about your product. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Well, so I think the only other one. Let's see. Yeah, the only other one that I had was, and we sort of talked about this before, but I just flexing NFL games or flex scheduling NFL games. I don't love it. Okay, I really don't. No, because look. I need to get some damn sleep. Okay, one of the things I love about the NFL is that the playoff games are usually on school nights are over before 9, 10 o'clock for the most part. Now they're doing Monday night playoff games, which is a whole other thing. But yeah, I mean, I just want most of the games to be on Sunday. I just want to get most of them over with that day. I don't want to be having to stay up. I mean, I already try to stay up late for NBA games. I don't need another sport where I got to stay up late. So yeah, I don't really, the whole standalone thing. I mean, like, let's be honest here. Like, part of the problem with the 4 o'clock games is that the 1 o'clock games, if you're watching Red Zone channel, okay, then you go to the 4 o'clock games. It's like it's a massive letdown because you're basically like, you're going from game to game to game to game to game, and then it's all of a sudden you got like 3 or 4 games, and it's like, all right, we'll watch this game for like 15 minutes, and then we'll flip over to this one, and it's like nothing's really happening. It's not all that interesting. To me, that's why, again, you were saying the 1 o'clock games are one of the best things the NFL has going. So, yeah, I'm not really a fan of the moving stuff around, especially side note, I don't really like the fact that, before the season, maybe you buy tickets to a game and then they say, okay, instead of this game being on Sunday at 1 o'clock, it's on Sunday night at 8:30. It's like, oh, like really? Like I'm going to be out till midnight, whenever. So that's a side note that I don't really like. I don't really go to NFL games, but.
Well, it sucks for fans. You're right about that. The flex scheduling for fans is unfair and ridiculous. But I don't mind them moving the better games to the nighttime time slot. I'm okay with that because we had so many bad games on, whenever. Now, if you're a fan of a team, though, it sucks. Like I don't want the Dolphins to be flexed in the last weekend of the season to the Sunday night game for Buffalo, but they're going to be. I know it's coming, and I'm like, fuck. Now that's mostly because of my own personal issues. I don't want the Dolphins to suck on national television and everybody make fun of us. But regardless.
Let me just put it this way, okay? Some of this undoubtedly has to do with the money and the fact that you can get, having a game on in prime time is better than having it on at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But again, the NFL, how much fucking money do you guys need to make? Come on. Like, you're totally destroying everybody else. Like, you can make a few decisions that go, yeah, we could squeeze a little bit more out of it if we moved it a few hours later, or we could just leave it where it is and it'll still make tons of fucking money. So, yeah, I don't think every single decision that we make needs to be about, how much money can we make? Like, come on.
I agree.
So,
yeah. I agree with you. I think we should be doing things more for the fans instead of against the fans. All right, so I got a couple more. So, first of all, fans. This one is kind of a criticism of fans. So if you're a fan of a team and you are a fan of a team or a city, and you've been winning for a long time, like I don't want to hear any of your nonsense complaining about your team when your team stinks now. Okay, Patriots fans, Boston fans, yeah, we don't really want to hear it. You've won how many fucking championships? Honestly, you're winning titles all over the freaking place. The Celtics are still really good, So I'm sorry that the Red Sox and the Patriots are in the tank. I get it, but
Bruins are good.
Yeah, and listen, have some I'm just asking for a little bit of perspective. I'm not saying you can't be upset if your team stinks. I get it. And you want your team to be better. I understand. We all want our teams to be better. Okay? We'd all love to win 6 Super Bowls. Okay? But it's probably not going to happen. So I'm just saying, have a modicum of decency, when it comes to, your team's losing now. It's I think Bill Simmons wrote this, years ago, rules for sports fans. And one of them was if your team wins a championship, you don't get to complain for 5 years. Okay. So the Patriots won it in 2019. Okay. So we haven't passed the statute of limitations yet. So quit your crying. And the other thing, what cracks me up the most, Clark, is how fans lose complete perspective on what's real when their team is bad. Oh, Mac Jones is terrible. We got to get rid of Mac Jones. It's yeah, you don't know what a bad quarterback is. Okay, you need to come over here and look at what we've been watching for most of our lives. Okay, you don't have any idea what a bad quarterback is. Talk to some of these teams who've just been in quarterback hell for God knows how long. So I'm just saying, have a little decency. The fact that I understand you want your team to win, but when you've won that many championships, don't be a jerk about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's just one of those things. And I thought the Red Sox fans had kind of changed a little bit. You went from not being able to win a World Series in 100 years or whatever the hell it was to you've won 4 since. Well, you won 3 since they won the one in 2004. So I just kind of feel like you really can't complain about anything with that. And then especially with the Patriots, the Packers had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. They won 2 Super Bowls. That's it. You guys won 6. Okay. And they had Favre and Aaron Rodgers for, I don't know, 30 years. I mean, sort of about 30 years between those two guys, and they only won 2. You guys won 6. So really, I think you can extend the 5-year statute of limitations out to 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I mean, before you guys started winning championships, I mean, you were basically, you were a team that was, you were kind of bad, and then you had those 2 years where you made the Super Bowl and you lost, and that was kind of it. So, and then you went on this 20-year run of just dominance. So the idea that you're going to get upset now that, oh, well, your coach is kind of past his prime and you don't have any talent on your roster and, whatever else. I hate to tell you guys, this is kind of how it goes. Maybe you guys will recover. Maybe you'll have a nice draft at some point. You'll get a really good quarterback and that'll flip things, or you get a different coach, whatever. But usually you're good for a while, and then you kind of suck. And then eventually things kind of turn around.
Well, and the thing is, and Clark, I'd like to think we have perspective. Yes, we complain about the Dolphins, but the Heat have been really good for a long time. They've won 3 titles. They made the finals, this past
last
June.
Year.
This year in 2023. So, yeah, and so for New England fans, it's really not that bad. You won the World Series in 2018. You won the Super Bowl in 2019. Boston went to the finals in 2022. So you've been doing okay. So, yeah. All right. So my next one was the uniforms. Now, this is more specifically to the NBA, where we've got 17,000 different uniforms that we're using. And tonight's and it's not uniforms in general, but it's throwback uniforms. Look, I understand we all have nostalgia and we want to go back, and I understand it's kind of interesting to see what the uniforms look like. My plan is this. I would like to have, all right, let's just have one Sunday in the NFL where everybody wears throwback uniforms, okay? And then we move on. Okay? We go back to whatever uniform they've got right now, that's what we wear. Like the NBA, I think we should go back to, all right, most of the time the home team wears white and the road team wears other colors. I just think it's ridiculous. I don't think we need 17,000 different uniforms. I understand that Oregon is fun. University of Oregon's fun, wearing a different uniform every week, and you can't tell every week. You got to get used to what are they wearing this week. But I just think we've gone a little too far, and this is another one of these things. We're trying to make money. Really don't. Let's go with this is the logo we have. Let's wear our usual uniforms. We don't need to wear throwback uniforms or some kind of alternate uniform, or like the Phoenix Suns, Clark. Instead of Phoenix or Suns on their jersey, it says the Valley. That's
a little. I don't get that.
Could we just? I don't think we need to do that.
If you want to sell throwback jerseys, go ahead and sell them. I don't think that's probably enough. I don't think you necessarily need to. You have to promote it on there to get people to buy stuff. I mean, throwbacks have been a thing for a long time now. People are going to buy this stuff. It's not, I don't necessarily think you need to promote it in order for people to do it.
Yeah. So my last one is, I just put this down, and this is, listen, you can accuse me of being East Coast biased because I live in Florida. I get it. But the starting times for some of these games, we need to, again, this is one of these things we need to push it a little, make it a little bit easier for the fans. And the thing is, I understand, then the West Coast viewers, blah, blah, blah. Trust me, West Coast viewers are not going to have a problem if their game is on a little bit earlier. They'll be fine, so I just think that, especially when we talked about college, especially college football games, the primetime games taking forever and a day, right? Starting the national championship game at 8:00 at night is it's lunacy. What are we doing? We've got to get these things on. And I'm talking half an hour to an hour earlier. I'm not talking, light years earlier, but it's just ridiculous living on the East Coast and having NBA Finals games start at 9:00. I don't know. I'm not sure what we're doing. And if we again, we don't need to. This doesn't need to change the world. But if you started Monday Night Football at 7:00, oh my God, what a blessing that is.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. That's a great point. you know, it's just kind of funny that they feel like it's such a problem if you start the game a little bit earlier, right? Like maybe people tune in a little bit later. Maybe they miss the first few minutes of the game. Maybe they miss the first quarter. If it's a good game, they'll keep watching. If they're a fan of one of the teams, they're going to keep watching. You know, I mean, we've probably got enough data to show that that's what happens. So yeah, and especially in the age of like DVRs, I mean, does it have to like people can, which maybe I don't know, that maybe that defeats your argument, but no. I mean, you can kind of, people can rewind stuff. They can watch. They can catch They can catch what they missed. A little bit later after the start time, so they don't have to be up so freaking late. And it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, we got to consider the West Coast audience. Well, how about this? Okay, because it feels like in order to consider the West Coast audience, you're totally screwing the East Coast audience. Like, we don't want to be watching these games at 1 a.m. or midnight. I want this to be over at like 10:30, 10:45. Like, I don't want to be up till 11:30, midnight. We don't want to be up.
And the greater good, right? The other three. How about the other three time zones? Why don't we just, if that's more people anyway, why don't you just take care of them? And by the way, you're arguing, you're thinking about DVRs. Like, I get that. Like, there's nothing wrong with that argument. But one of the best things, and all the TV networks are making all their money off of live sports. That's what they're selling. It's live. That's the whole point of it. Yes, we can watch it on DVR. That's fine. But that's not their target audience. Their target audience is not the people who are going to DVR it and watch it later. They're trying to get casual fans. So I just think, I think we could do a much better job with the starting times for the World Series, the starting times for the NBA Finals. The Super Bowl is pretty decent. 6:30 in the afternoon is actually, it's the one thing where they actually give us a break on it. The Final Four is pretty good. The first game starts at like 6 o'clock, and then the second game is at 8 o'clock. So they do pretty well with that. But the national championship game at 9 p.m.
Yeah, it's always it's at 9 p.m. or it's on at some funky ass time like 9:23 or something.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're screwing us even more. They're having us turn it on at 8 o'clock, and it doesn't start until 8:30. So I think
it's like, guys, come on, man. Like, I'm not doing this, and it's so funny because people complain about this stuff every freaking year. I mean, they're like, you'll turn on, like, you'll hear radio shows and stuff like, oh, so when does the game start? 9:30. It's like, oh God, really?
Yeah, well, this year with the college football games, Clark, the semifinal games, the Rose Bowl's on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon because it always has to be on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon because they want the sun setting over the mountains halfway through the third quarter. So the Rose Bowl, and again, the Rose Bowl has to screw everything up. So we get the first game at 5 o'clock Eastern, which is okay, fine. But then the second game's at 8:45. Like, we're literally, it's completely unnecessary. Put them, and with that, you could put them on different days if that would be no big deal. Anyway, all right. So that's our grievances for this year. Hope we didn't complain too much. But before we get out of here, Clark, so the one topic in the NFL. Well, first let's talk about the Dolphins. We've got to play the Cowboys on Sunday, and there seemed to be a divided. People seem to be divided on this game. The point spread, I think the Dolphins are favored by 1 or 1.5, something like that. The Dolphins, kind of righted the ship last week by beating the Jets, but I'm not sure how much of an accomplishment that is. And the Cowboys got their ass kicked by Buffalo last week. So I'm optimistic about this game. I mean, I think the Dolphins have a chance. I'm not saying, oh well, there's no way they're going to be able to beat them, because the Dolphins haven't beaten a good team this year or really last year for the most part. So that's kind of the thing going into it is, can the Dolphins beat a good team, and can the Cowboys keep beating good teams, especially on the road, because they haven't really been able to do that. So I think. I mean, I want to be optimistic about it, but I also consider the possibility that when the Dolphins play badly, they really play bad. It's not like the difference in like what the Dolphins playing well and the Dolphins not playing well it's a huge gap. Like, there's not like the Dolphins don't play like a median game. They either play really well, good enough to beat anybody, or they're so bad that I'm not sure that they struggle to beat a team like the Jets. So how are you feeling about this game a couple days out?
Well, so I was just reading a little bit before. So Tyron Smith is probably not going to play.
It's the left tackle
one
for
of
the
the offensive
Cowboys.
linemen for the Cowboys. So that's kind of a big deal. I really think looking at this game, whichever team starts off well is probably going to win the game. I feel like with both of these teams, if they start off well, they win the game. You know, if either team starts off poorly, then I think that doesn't bode well for how they're going to play the rest of the game. But again, I think this kind of, as with many NFL games, I think this kind of it comes down to the offensive. It comes down to the line of scrimmage, because can the Dolphins give Tua enough time to make plays with the receivers that they have? Same thing with the Cowboys. Can Dak Prescott get a lot of time? If Dak Prescott gets tons of time to throw, then I think the Dolphins are going to have a huge problem. And I know people are bringing up that the Bills ran the ball really well, but the Bills ran the ball right at the Bills ran the ball really well last week against the Cowboys. The Bills ran it really well. They ran like right at the Cowboys. Miami doesn't do that. Miami runs toward the side, toward the edges. So we'll see if you'd think maybe that's a run game that they can kind of keep an eye on better. But I mean, I don't know. It's weird because I think Miami's run game works. Even though their offensive line isn't that good, I guess it just works because they have so much speed that it just spreads people out, and it's just very tough to deal with.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of game Miami has to play. They've got to possess the ball, keep it away from Dallas, make a big play here and there. But yeah, they're going to have to try to control the game at the line of scrimmage. And we'll see how, the Dolphins defense has been playing pretty well. They've been getting better, but let's see how they do against a legitimate offense. They really haven't played a team this good in a while. So we'll see how they do. And the thing was, like, you look at the games of the good teams the Dolphins have played this year. They were competitive with Kansas City. They were competitive with Philadelphia, right? They kind of got their ass kicked by Buffalo. But we'll see how this goes. So the other thing that you and I wanted to talk about, we've already discussed, is that Buffalo's beaten. They beat Kansas City and they beat Dallas. Like, I was thinking Buffalo would probably win one of those games, but the fact that they won both of those games, and then you look at their schedule where they're playing the Chargers today, and then they're playing the Patriots the week after, and then the Dolphins. And it's just kind of funny to me that the argument, like, you can clearly, like, if you just look at the playoff schedule, or not the playoff schedule, but you look at the schedule coming up, and you look at the situation that they're in, right? The Dolphins would have to beat Dallas and Baltimore to clinch the division, right? So that's not going to be likely to happen. Like, the Dolphins are barely a favorite at this game at home, and they're definitely not going to be favored against Baltimore. So, but this idea that, oh, well, Buffalo, I mean, I don't know, like, they're still not in the playoffs yet, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not sure that they're going to make it. So I don't know how you can believe in Buffalo going forward. And it's just kind of like, anybody with half a brain can see that Buffalo's going to win their next two games more than likely and be playing against the Dolphins for the division more than likely. So this idea that the Buffalo is way behind and has very little chance to make the playoffs, it just blows my mind. Because let me get this straight. You trust the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans and the Cleveland Browns more than the Buffalo Bills, really? And the thing is, we're only talking about, Buffalo is a couple of interceptions away and a stupid penalty on a field goal from Buffalo being 10-4, and we're not even having this discussion. Like, they've lost a couple of games that were this season that are pretty stupid, that most of the time you don't lose. And so we're using that as like a way to downgrade Buffalo, when I don't understand what these people are talking about. To me, it's obvious Buffalo is going to make the playoffs, and there's a decent chance they win the division. So I don't understand these people acting like, but trying to just downgrade Buffalo, because, I mean, Dallas is a pretty good team, and Buffalo just smoked them.
Yeah. It's just odd to me. I'm like, are you guys paying attention? Are you guys looking at the schedule? Are you guys factoring in the type of teams that Buffalo is playing compared to the teams that Miami is playing? I mean, guys, you understand. if they lose to Dallas, okay, even if they beat Baltimore, then unless the Bills lose to the Chargers or the Patriots, which again I understand we have questions about the Bills and they've lost some bad games, but the way that they're playing now, they weren't playing this way earlier in the season. So the odds of them losing to either of those two teams is really slim, you know. And then the other thing that you got to remember here, and this is hilarious too. Okay, what if the Dolphins lose both of their next two games, which is totally likely because guys, you guys have been criticizing the Dolphins because they haven't beat good teams. Well, they haven't. They're playing two good teams in a row. You think they're going to win both of those games? Probably not. They could lose both of those two games. What's more likely? They win both of those two games or they lose both of them? It's probably more likely they lose, okay? So then you're 10-6 going into the last week of the season. At that point, the Bills could lose one of their next two games. And then they could still play the Dolphins and win the division. So I'm just like, if you want to give the Dolphins a huge chance to make the playoffs, like that's fine. Maybe they can win one of their next three games. It's three chances to win one game. Maybe they can pull it off against one of these teams. Okay? It's the NFL. Crazy stuff happens every week. Fine, whatever. Okay? And if they get to 11 wins, they'll probably make the playoffs. But the idea that it's such a long shot for the Bills to make the playoffs and or win the division it's not a long shot, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Like, just look at what's going on here and look at, just have a rational view of the situation based on past history this season.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. If people are acting like I'm hearing these shows, well, they might not make the playoffs. It's probably a better, like, not only are they going to make the playoffs, Clark, they're probably going to have a home game in the playoffs. Like, I don't think people realize it just cracks me up. And listen, by the way, what you said about the Dolphins, yeah, they can win one out of the next three games if that game's against Buffalo. If they only win one against Dallas or Baltimore, they're still going to be playing Buffalo for the division. So it's just just like, I don't understand how people have completely missed this. And to Dolphins fans who are acting like, oh, well, they blew the game to Tennessee. Well, this happens. It's no big deal. That game is a huge deal. Like, if the Dolphins don't go as far as they want, if they don't win the division or whatever happens, right, we're going to look at that game and be like, God damn, like if we did, you know what I mean? It could be the difference between, even if the Dolphins win the division, it could be the difference between a 3 seed and a 2 seed, a 4 seed and a 3 seed. It could be the difference between, having to play Baltimore, even if you win a playoff game, having to go to Baltimore or go to, I don't understand how people can act like it's not a big deal.
Well, I think some of these people were just getting unrealistic expectations. And so it's like, yeah, for, like a Super Bowl contending team, you lose one game. Okay, fine. You can get over that, whatever. But it's like when you haven't been able to beat a good team, and let me just point something out. Everyone's talking about, well, this year's team doesn't beat good teams. They didn't beat good teams last year. Okay? I know they beat the Ravens like early on in the season, and fine, I'll give them credit for that. And they beat Buffalo in this really fluky game. But every other big game they were in, the 49ers, the Chargers, the Packers, the Packers weren't even really that good of a team last year. But, and then the Bills again, like every other one of those games they lost. Okay, and then maybe they were competitive in some of them, but they lost. Okay, and they same thing this year. They've been competitive against some of these good teams, and they've lost. So the idea that it's no big deal, well, you're assuming they can just go out there and beat good teams. They have not proven that they can do that. They do not get the benefit of the doubt, And this whole season was built on you beat the teams you're supposed to beat. They were supposed to beat the Titans, and they didn't do it. If they had done that, they're 11-3, right?
Right.
So even if they lose, their next two games, then they're playing Buffalo, and in fact, I think that's hilarious. 11-5. Even then, they'd be playing Buffalo for the division.
Right.
But then if Buffalo loses one game, then it's over. Then the Dolphins got it. So It's like, guys, you don't understand. That was a huge freaking deal. That's why it's not just how the game went, but it's also the fact, all the implications from the game. And we're not overreacting and saying this stuff. The people who are analyzing this stuff, your job as an analyst, you're not paid by the team. You're not supposed to be overconfident in what the team can do. You're supposed to tell me what do we think the team can do based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah, if you're a hater on Buffalo, then you're going to act like, well, I'm not sure they're going to beat the Chargers or the Patriots. And it's just like, I don't understand the argument. It's literally like the odd, like, guys, the law of averages, the odds, like, it's likely Buffalo's going to win both those games. I mean, that's not a stretch. That's just a fact. We've seen both these teams play. Buffalo is favored by 13 points today. That's not an accident. That's not because people don't get it. Like, I don't know what to say. So it just cracks me up. I'm going to laugh my ass off when Buffalo's sitting there in the playoffs and beating somebody. And it's just going to kill me, because it just, like, guys, have you looked? It's quite obvious. It's not hard to figure out. You look at the schedule.
And the same thing that happened last year could happen this year. The Dolphins could could make the playoffs and play the Bills.
Right.
In Buffalo.
Yeah, you could go from this season going, and by the way, if that happens, we're going to be sitting here going, boy, if you'd have won that Tennessee game, I mean, I hate to say it, that's where we're at. But
yeah.
I feel like the Dolphins probably have a better chance of beating the Cowboys than they do the Ravens, but we'll see.
I think, like I said before, however these games start off, if the Dolphins start off playing well, then they have a chance to win the game, especially if their defense starts off playing well. If they start off playing poorly, if Tua throws an interception or they get behind, that's the other thing. When I say start off the game playing well, get the lead first.
Right.
You know, both of these teams, the Cowboys and the Dolphins, if they get the lead and they can play downhill, it's a different game.
Yeah. Yeah, both teams are designed to get the lead and protect it. All right. So happy holidays, everybody. Everybody
happy
have
Festivus.
Happy
May
Festivus.
You air all your grievances.
That's right. Don't, drinking a lot is not a feat of strength, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, no, that's not a good, no, it's not
so,
a good idea.
Everybody enjoy yourselves, and look forward to seeing everybody in the next episode. Go Dolphins.